And a hello once again to the Moby Dick translation service, where we take an old book from the olden days written in olden language, and what do we turn it into, Andy?
I mean, we mostly turn it into gold, I would say.
That's how gold is formed.
Well,
You
gold.
may think, if you had read works by such academics as has since been disproven by modern science, that gold was made by old dinosaurs turning into stones and then those stones being turned into metals. But we now know that Moby Dick is what we're turning into gold.
Yeah. This is why we...
Can we start again?
Yeah. we don't need to script intros, though. That's the...
Maybe we should.
I think you should. I think you should commit. You should stand by.
I had completely forgotten where gold comes from.
Yeah,
I'd completely forgotten. It turns out it comes from the stars. I remember reading the stat about that. It wasn't a stat; it was a fact, which is similar. And it was about how you can only get gold at a specific part of a star exploding, and that's why gold is valuable, and that's why wars are fought over it and murders done. Whereas other stuff, like cardboard, you can just make that. Can't do that with gold. Like no one's ever fought a war for cardboard.
It doesn't require a supernova to make a cardboard box.
As far as we know.
I think I'd say gold's quite aesthetically pleasing as well, isn't it? Not to diss on cardboard.
I don't know. Have you tried painting on gold? You can do a lot more with cardboard.
You can't sprinkle little bits of cardboard into cocktails and then charge exorbitant prices for it. In fact, I would say that people would pay less for a cocktail which has bits of cardboard in it.
Was it you I was having this conversation with about golden chunks in spirits and whether it's created a cottage industry of people around the sewers for fancy nightclubs who just go panning for gold? Because there's gold in them there hills.
I don't think this was me. Were you talking to somebody in a cocktail bar about this?
I bet you there's someone with a sieve
in one hand. Yeah.
I don't even know what they've got. So, to get back on track, this is where we take Moby Dick and turn it into Moby Quite Good, actually, which is very different to Moby, the musician and supposed sex pest. Wait, did we confirm whether it was sex pest?
No, you really didn't. I think your sources on that were like twice removed.
Oh my god, I'm going to get us sued. I'm sorry, Andy, we're both going to go to prison now.
Episode 1 was just like, don't talk about Moby, Sam. You haven't checked.
We did cover that, didn't we?
Yeah.
I remember there was a rumor that he kept telling everyone that Natalie Portman was his girlfriend, and she was like, no. I remember there was Twitter beef.
But like saying there's a rumor and I heard it on Twitter.
That makes it a rumor. That's giving it a platform. If I've read it, lots of people have read it. Unlike Moby Dick, which a lot of people, like our friend Graham, have tried to read it, but discovered it's just too hard. So we're fighting back against the elites of 1800s America. And giving it back to the common people.
I mean, I think there is this narrative, isn't there, where it's like something which is a classic or seen as a classic now. We're like, oh, it was always a classic and it's always part of this elite. I think with Moby Dick, it very much wasn't. It was like everyone hated it.
Oh.
Yeah. Kind of in the same way, like, I don't know, people like Mozart or whatever, you're like, oh, it's some posh guy making posh music. And it's like, he's just like living in poverty.
Really?
Trying to get by.
Was Mozart quite punk rock? Is that what we're going to write for Vulture next?
Yeah.
Or whoever fucking pays for these articles, I don't know.
Yeah, we really don't know. So please at us in chat if you work for...
And also, speaking of... things that professional writers do, Andy, as you will have seen in the little holding slate before we started and we enjoyed those lovely ocean waves, You will
I
have
love
seen I was doing some nice sort of hand stretches to get ready for typing. Do
Mm.
you have any recommended hand stretches, just so that we can put on like a health and
Oh,
fitness tag on Twitch as well?
I I actually do because I genuinely
All right,
get
what have we
hand
got? Show
cramp
us.
each typing. You get do a bit of a thumb stretch first.
Oh.
It's terrifying with my thumbs because I'm a bit double jointed, so
Eh.
I can do that.
I hate
That's
this.
when people play thumb war with me, it's just a stalemate. I just
I
go like
remember, yeah, you Switzerland thumb wars.
that. So yeah, you got to stretch that thumb a bit, and then you want to do one of these.
Doing that.
It's a little
Yeah.
bit like you're doing one of the log roll kind of holds in martial arts, but not like you're trying to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And then you do one of those, yeah,
All
and then you
right.
do it with the other hand too. But no, yeah, that's genuinely good advice, isn't
That's
it?
very good advice. And
People pay money for that.
that's free, folks. Can you believe it? Speaking of free, I've been putting previous chapters of this up on the Patreon, which I don't think I put a link on Twitch, so
Aw.
unlucky. You don't need to give us money, it's just a place where we can put things. And that's where we're at today. That's where we are, and that's the journey we've been on. But what about Ishmael's journey? How's he
Yeah.
gotten to where he is today? Should we do a little recap, and should we also get the gambling tag on the stream by flipping a coin for who has to?
I really can't remember what's happened now. So,
Me neither.
but that's why it's a gamble. There's real stakes.
One of us is going to look very silly if they forget something important.
One of us is about to lose the farm. Okay.
A gambling term.
Yeah, I think so. Betting
All
the
right.
farm.
If it's
All
heads, I do it.
Okay.
Shit, yeah.
Okay.
Now that's gambling.
Gonna do it again.
All
I'm too
right.
grumpy. It's actually tails. But could you see the flicker across my eyes where I was like, I could just lie?
You could just lie.
Yeah.
I can see it, but
there was genuinely a pause. Yeah, but I could just keep my hand down here and be
you could.
like,
I mean, also, it's a bottle cap. We don't know which one's heads and which is tails. There's no standardized labeling for this.
That's got to be heads, hasn't it? It's got a crown on it.
Yeah, but it's almost always going to be the tails if that's the case, because that's where all the weight's going to be.
This is a Vegas issue Budweiser bottle cap. so it's perfectly weighted to settle disputes such as this. Oh, okay.
All
I've
right.
got to do it, I guess.
Give us a recap.
And so I'm going to blow my nose first.
Oh, now this is care. This is the standard of care to presentation. We don't do that mid recap.
I love that in any kind of news report. That's why they have the desks there, where they're just like, in other news, hang on a second, and they just disappear under the table. But of
You
course,
don't get that here.
Yeah, I mean, their news reports are somebody's there to blow their nose for them.
They got a whole staff.
Yeah.
Anyway, you ready? We've got a bit of a jazzy spy mix to go behind you, so if that's the tone you want to take, maybe Private Eye style.
I won't be able to hear it.
No,
so,
you won't, but
yeah.
just feel it. That's what jazz is, Andy. All right. And begin.
So we joined our friend Ishmael as he set out towards Nantucket in hopes of joining a whaling cruise. On his way there, he had to stop at New Bedford and wait for the next packet. He doesn't have much money, and in fact he's got holes in his boots, so he decided to stay at the worst inn ever, called the Spouter Inn by Peter Coffin. Peter Coffin is a psychopath who it describes as giving men poisons from within the jaws of a whale, as his bar is constructed from whale bones. That's a motif we'll keep seeing. And he also likes to plane benches to make them more comfortable for people to sleep on. Now, Peter Coffin's a bit of a trickster, so he thought it would be funny if he tricked Ishmael into sharing a bed with Queequeg. Queequeg is widely regarded by these guys as a cannibal, so they thought maybe he'll murder Ishmael. Maybe that'll be the end of the book.
That would have been a funny joke of Peter Coffin, though. It
would have been one of his all-time top 10 pranks. Maybe we should assemble that later. To prank 1, plane benches and say it makes them more comfortable. Prank 2, change all drinks for poison.
You Which the best character? Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Anyway, sorry, yeah. So yeah, that didn't happen. Not only did that not happen, Queequeg and Ishmael became best friends.
Like husband and wife, you could say.
Like husband and wife, he did say. And they had a nice cuddle. They had a lovely breakfast where Queequeg used his harpoon, because he is a harpooneer, to harpoon some steaks at the kitchen table and almost kill some people. He also had a bit of a mess when he was trying to get dressed, where he put his hat and boots on and nothing else, and had to wriggle under the bed to complete the rest of his attiring. And then I think we've taken to the streets, where we spent a little bit of time talking about how sailors bother people on the street.
Too close.
Yeah. Got a bit of an Emma cameo there in the background. Hi, Emma. And then we had a church that Ishmael's decided to go to, and he's had a nice chat about all these plaques on the wall which describe interesting ways that whalemen have died. Him and Queequeg have found it quite funny. And I think at the end of the chapter, he was defying God to try and kill him because he's invincible.
Yeah. And I think that's quite aspirational. Yeah, I think that was a very thorough sum up.
Was that
So,
longer
get out
than
of
the
town,
music?
Jazz. No, the music's got another... fucking hell, it's a long track. That's got another 2 minutes. Anyway, so that's where we are. So without further ado... Is it adieu or adieu like French for goodbye? What's the saying there?
I would say adieu, as in much ado about nothing.
What about much ado about nothing? What about that?
I just accidentally invented a popular muffin chain there, I think. Much ado about muffin.
I'd go there.
Yeah.
I want to write a story about zombies launching spaceships and call it Cape Cadaverall.
Oh! Why are we spending our time doing this? We should be setting up muffin chains and
launching bodies into space.
Yeah, we could rival SpaceX.
Good. We want our rockets to explode. We're achieving our goals.
That would be amazing. Just every launch, it's a massive failure, but everybody cheers.
Monad says people would pay a lot for space burials. I think they already do, don't they? Didn't they send Scotty off Star Trek up into space? But just a few grains of his ashes or something.
Is it Gene Roddenberry, the guy who wrote Star Trek? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got his ashes scattered into space. Yeah.
Do you think you could, if you set up a company doing that, would you roll, like, where would your morality land, Andy? Would you put the whole set of ashes into space, or would you cut costs and just send a bit of it up there?
Oh.
What would you do?
That seems a bit sad. I'm presuming that they're charging quite a lot of money for this service. So if you're asking what I would do personally, I think it would be unethical. If you're asking what would be the best business decision, then obviously don't send anything up there. But yeah.
It's like buying land in Scotland. You know, that one, the way you become a lord, not like buying a house. I'm not disparaging the Scottish housing market.
Oh, you mean to become a lord? You just like...
Yeah, or that hoax where you name a star, and it's like, yep, sure, that's definitely a thing that's real.
Yeah, or buy a plot of land on the moon. Again, yeah, we're in the wrong business, aren't we?
We are. We should be just... I mean, I was going to say we should just be selling shit, but that's what we're going to do once this is finished and we put it up on Kindle store.
Oh, there's a quote for the back cover.
Yeah. Anyway,
they said we couldn't sell shit.
Just a picture of us holding like a dog poo bag and holding a pound coin. All right, let's make a start. It's a short chapter, so it might be a short stream. We'll see how we get on. Here we are.
We've had our fun. Now it's down to business.
Yeah, it's time to knuckle down. I don't know any more sayings people use for doing hard work, because I'm not much of a hard work guy. So that's where we are. Chapter 8, The Pulpit. I'll take this first one.
Okay.
Since you did the recap. I had not been seated very long ere a man of certain venerable robustness entered, immediately as the storm-pelted door flew back upon admitting him, a quick regardful eyeing of him by all the congregation sufficiently attested that this fine old man was the chaplain. Yes, it was the famous Father Mapple, so called by the whalemen, among whom he was a very great favourite. He had been a sailor and a harpooneer in his youth, but for many years past had dedicated his life to the ministry. At the time I now write of, Father Mapple was in the hardy winter of a healthy old age, that sort of old age where it seems merging into a second flowering youth. For among all the fissures of his wrinkles there shone certain mild gleams of a newly developing bloom, the spring verdure peeping forth even beneath February's snow. No one having previously heard his history could for the first time behold Father Mapple without the utmost interest, because there were certain engrafted clerical peculiarities about him, imputable or imputable to that adventurous maritime life he had led. When he entered, I observed that he carried no umbrella, and had certainly not come in his carriage, for his tarpaulin hat ran down with melting sleet, and his great pilot cloth jacket seemed almost to drag him to the floor with the weight of the water it absorbed. However, hat and coat and overshoes were one by one removed and hung up in a little space in an adjacent corner, when, arrayed in a decent suit, he quietly approached the pulpit, which is what the chapter's about. Andy, I have heard the word pulpit previously.
Yes.
But I don't know what it is.
It's the bit you stand in a church when you're talking to people.
Right.
But it's specifically the bit that you give the sermon from. There's other bits of the church you might stand in and talk that aren't the pulpit, so that's where it gets confusing.
Okay. Chapter 8, The Pulpit, brackets, church sermon platform.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's like a one-person stage.
Okay, so shortly after, a guy walked in. A guy.
He was the kind of guy.
A guy with a kind of venerable robustness, if you know what I mean. The doors slammed shut behind him, and everyone turned to look.
It's getting real eyeful, aren't they?
He was the chaplain, but not the normal kind of chaplain you might be used to. This guy was an ex-sailor chaplain. He didn't bring an umbrella, and he hadn't come in a coach or anything, because all of his clothes were fucking soaked. And he was wearing loads of cloth, as chaplains do, which is why they're called men of the cloth. Fun fact.
That's another freebie.
Yeah. But there was so much water in all his layers that he was dragging himself around like some kind of haunted, sentient sponge on a hook in a coat. Everyone loved this guy. Father Mapple. He was famous. Famous for being a cool old sailor chaplain. But even though he was old, he was kind of young in a weird old way. Here's my thinking on this. They say that all your cells replace themselves. It's every 7 years, this fact.
I don't know.
Replace themselves. I mean, he wouldn't know. I'm definitely putting words in his mouth. This is highly unethical. Replace themselves every 7 years or so. But this guy was so old that his cells... This doesn't make any sense. His cells...
You're writing yourself into a corner.
I'm definitely doing that. I'm being like that boat in the Suez Canal, but with writing. This guy was so old that his cells were all
Cool.
refreshed so much and so many times that he was basically a new man and had been a new man many times before. And he had twinkly eyes peering out from that massive, saggy, overhanging, wrinkled sheet of a forehead. Might just delete that paragraph.
Let's have a look. I want to see it before it goes.
Shortly after, a guy walked in, a guy with a kind of venerable robustness, if you know what I mean. The door slammed shut behind him and everyone turned to look. He was the chaplain, but not the normal kind of chaplain you might be used to. This guy was an ex-sailor chaplain. He didn't bring an umbrella and he hadn't come in a coach or anything because all of his clothes were fucking soaked. And he was wearing loads of cloth, as chaplains do, which is why they're called men of the cloth, fun fact. But there was so much water in all his layers that he was dragging himself around like some kind of haunted sentient sponge on a hook in a coat. Everyone loved this guy, Father Mapple. He was famous for being a cool old sailor chaplain, but even though he was old, he was the kind of young in a weird old way. Here's my thinking on this. They say that all your cells replace themselves every 7 years or so, but this guy was so old that his cells were all refreshed so much and so many times over that he was basically a new man, and had been a new man many times before, and he had twinkly eyes peering out from that massive, saggy, overhanging, wrinkled sheet of a forehead.
I love it. I think it's great. It's got that Melville energy to it as well.
It's
where it's
definitely
like,
not what he was saying, though, is it?
No, I guess not.
Because I don't know what he was saying about there shone certain mild gleams of a newly developing bloom. Maybe that is that. Maybe it's his cells regenerating.
Well, yeah, it's like he seems to have. He's got a new lease of life to him. I mean, it doesn't really make that much sense. It's kind of like saying the bits between all the wrinkles.
He had a new lease of life, if you will. There we go.
Yes. Perfect.
All right, fixed. Okay, he was wearing loads of clothes. It was all damp.
And then he's putting off his hat.
He shook himself out of most of the most damp clothes and chucked them in a corner. Was it a corner? It was a
revelation.
corner.
Revelation to me here. Overshoes as a thing.
What?
Why don't we have those anymore? He's losing his hat, his coat, and his overshoes.
I had overshoes in like a costume. like a cowboy costume, and it was boots that you could wear over your trainers. Those are overshoes, I guess.
Yeah. So you're a lucky man.
Can wear as many shoes as I like. Okay, this is you. I think we've nailed all that.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay. So,
like most old-fashioned pulpits, it was a very lofty one, and since a regular stairs of such a height would, by its long angle with the floor, seriously contract the already small area of the chapel, the architect, it seemed, had acted upon the hint of Father Mapple, and finished the pulpit without a stairs, substituting a perpendicular side ladder, like those used in mounting a ship from a boat at sea. The wife of a whaling captain had provided the chapel with a handsome pair of red worsted man ropes for this ladder, which, being itself nicely headed and stained with a mahogany colour, the whole contrivance, considering what manner of chapel it was, seemed by no means in bad taste. Halting for an instant at the foot of the ladder, and with hands grasping the ornamental knobs of the man ropes, Father Mapple took a look upwards, and then, with a truly sailor-like but still reverential dexterity, hand over hand, mounted the steps as if ascending the main top of his vessel. So,
okay, I got this. All right.
have you got this?
You might be thinking, Ishmael, you just got to this town. How do you know about Father Mapple?
That's a very good question.
And him being a sailor. And I'd say, watch your tone. And then I'd explain the following. When I was describing this chapel a chapter ago, I neglected to mention that this was not just a chapel for sailors, it was a chapel made by sailors, which you could tell by the fact that it was basically a boat inside with ropes and ladders and all the other nautical modes of ambulation. That's not ambulation. Modes of egress. That's the one.
Nice.
Egress. Egress instead of your more common and expected options like stairs. Anyway, even if you didn't know anything about sailing, which I do, so it's neither here nor there. It's every time he has to remind us he's a sailor. Even if you didn't know anything about sailor, which I do, so it's neither here or there would be something in your bones that would look at the way Father Mapple, caps, Father Mapple ascended to the pulpit, that would just tell you, just scream at you, that man's a sailor, or he was anyway, because when the father walked up to that old ship-like ladder to get up to his podium, The years fled his body like moths from an old coat. And he definitely hauled himself aloft with a reverence and a skill that only a sailor could possess. Oh my god, I'm definitely making this longer than it was originally. Jesus Christ.
Worth it. I mean, we said this before. We always get excited when it's a short section, and we're like, we could make this longer.
Should we? Should we just make it worse? Yes, let's do that. What the fuck is wrong with us?
I love it. I think it's ace. I like the image of the mask. I spent that time googling man ropes, just to see what would come up, and actually, it's it's a definition. So it's the rope on the side of a ship's gangway or ladder for support in walking or climbing. So I'm assuming it's like a rope running alongside it that you can just grab and then you can walk the steps. So that's the general Google search. Image search, not so great.
The top of his boat, which in this case was the church.
I guess it is.
Is the boat the church, or is the pulpit the boat?
I would say the church is the ship, and he's ascending the main top of his vessel, as it says here. So it's like he's going up to the top mast.
Is the church, and the pulpit, the main. What's a main top? I'm just gonna leave it at that.
In
this case was the church.
Yeah.
But not the roof. Would be awful in this weather. Oh man, this is rough. Okay.
I think when we read it back in its entirety, I think you'll like it. I like it so far.
But all the Melville fans are going to come and yell at us for insinuating things.
I know this is a hot take, but I think that maybe huge Melville fans wouldn't necessarily be happy with us anyway.
What?
I mean, I should say I'm a big Melville fan, and I'm not mad. So, case closed, I guess.
Okay, I'll use that defense. Okay, right.
Okay.
The perpendicular parts of this side ladder, as is usually the case with swinging ones, were of cloth-covered rope. Only the rounds were of wood, so that every step there was a joint. At my first glimpse of the pulpit, it had not escaped me that, however convenient for a ship, these joints in the present instance seemed unnecessary, for I was not prepared to see Father Mapple, after gaining the height, slowly turn around and, stooping over the pulpit, deliberately drag up the ladder step by step till the hole was deposited within, leaving him impregnable in his little Quebec. I did not see that coming.
No, I mean, you've got to hand it to Melville. That's a good detail.
One thing I did not see coming, however, was after climbing the ladder, Father Mapple picked it up after him and folded up the whole thing behind him in the pulpit himself. There wasn't going to be anybody else climbing up after him. It was a defensible position. Very wise. Okay.
This whole thing, it's kind of like, for like little kids' beds where they get them like a bed frame that looks like a sports car.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of energy, hasn't it? Where it's like, I really like ships, so my pulpit looks like a ship.
That's exactly what it is. It's a themed child's bedroom, but it's a church.
Yeah, and kind of I mean, it's kind of awesome in the church context. Usually, I think with the kid, not to attack the idea with kids' beds, but it really just makes it super obvious that it's a bad sports car when it's a bed. You know what I mean? It's like it draws attention to the bed being even more boring, I think.
What?
That's just my take. Even as a kid, I was just like, that's not cool. Like having a bed shaped like a sports car is just like really drawing attention to the fact that
you don't have a sports car.
Yeah. Because that's not what sports cars are for. You don't just go and sleep in them.
I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I worked with a guy who did. He, in his own words, no, that's going to identify him. He had a very expensive car and he didn't have a house. That's a guy I used to work with who's a little bit eccentric, I would say.
That's fair enough. I just want to say we're both really bringing our A game this week, aren't we? I'm attacking the idea of child sports car beds.
I'm attacking a former co-worker.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
It turns out that a short episode isn't necessarily a less problematic one.
It's the chaotic option, isn't it?
Yeah.
Takes us off task. Alright. So, yeah, we've covered that. Impregnable Quebec. This one's you.
Okay, I've just spotted a word that's going to be hard to pronounce, so here we go.
Oh, yeah.
I pondered some time without fully comprehending the reason for this. Father Mapple enjoyed such a wide reputation for sincerity and sanctity that I could not suspect him of courting notoriety by any mere tricks of the stage. No, thought I, there must be some sober reasoning for this. Furthermore, it must symbolize something unseen. Can it be, then, that by that act of physical isolation he signifies his spiritual withdrawal for the time from all outward worldly ties and connections? Yes, for replenished with the meat and wine of the word, to the faithful man of God, this pulpit, I see, is a self-containing stronghold, a lofty Ehrenbreitstein.
Ehrenbreitstein.
Yes, with a perennial well of water within the walls.
Okay, I can make that brief.
Yeah. I like that this is it's like Melville teaching us how to read a book that has layers of meaning. He's like, you look at an image and it actually means something to be dramatic.
Okay, maybe it wasn't that he was paranoid about some bastards coming in and grabbing his ankles mid-sermon, though. Maybe it was symbolic. Maybe it was symbolic? Maybe him climbing up all high and then pulling up the ladder behind him was to show that he was detached from all this surface level human bullshit. Above it all, untouchable. He doesn't need all our shit that we're into. He's got God. Capital for God there. He's got God and all the perks that God might offer. He's got a fully catered little God pod up there. He doesn't to worry about us dirty little pricks on the ground. Rolling around and sinning and doing all that other bad stuff. What's his take on this? Is he going to react to this good in a good way or a bad way?
I think he's probably going to react in an ambiguous way. Yeah.
Okay. It's
Emma
all right
says,
for some.
Emma says, bit elitist for a vicar.
I suppose it is. If there's
What
one thing
climbing. I mean, he's really just underlining the symbolism there already. Like, just having a pulpit is basically saying this.
True.
But he's also effectively just putting a big sign there saying,
"Can't touch me."
No one else. Yeah.
I'm going to heaven. You guys can't. He's literally pulling the ladder up behind him. Like that's an actual thing that people say about people who got all the government spending and then say, "Oh, young people don't deserve anything, but they're lazy."
Or the great Bezos letter to Congress, where he's like, "Not that long ago, I was a really struggling small businessman."
He is a small businessman.
but like the whole point of the criticism was you are annihilating small businessmen, and he defends that with like, "Oh, it's not that long ago I was really struggling," and it's like, yeah. And that's the point. Anyway, sorry, that is a digression.
Anyway, yeah, it's all right for some. Okay, but the side ladder was not the only strange feature of the place. Borrowed from the chaplain's former seafarings, between the marble cenotaphs on either hand of the pulpit, the wall which formed its back was adorned with a large painting representing a gallant ship beating against a terrible storm off a lee coast of black rocks and snowy breakers. But high above the flying scud and dark rolling clouds, there floated a little isle of sunlight, from which beamed forth an angel's face. And this bright face shed a distinct spot of radiance upon the ship's tossed deck, something like that silver plate now inserted into the Victory's plank where Nelson fell. "Ah, noble ship," the angel seemed to say. beat on, thou noble ship, and bear a hardy helm. For lo, the sun is breaking through, the clouds are rolling off, serenest azure is at hand."
Cool.
Victory's plank where Nelson fell. What's that?
Well,
we're talking about Admiral Nelson.
Yeah.
The main Nelson.
His ship, the Victory.
Right.
And he won that
big sea battle. Is there a famous
battle.
Silver plate in it?
I would guess they put a plaque there saying this is where Nelson got shot, while he was dressed in full regalia, standing on his deck with all those snipers around.
Deserved it, to be honest.
I mean, that's just another good take.
I would simply not stand on the deck when there's boat snipers. Yeah. I'd be hunkered down, returning fire.
I guess it was his job. If we're being generous, we might say he maybe was meant to be there. But yeah,
times were different back then, as we can see in the hit series Sharp.
I think to preserve his body, they stuffed him into like a big barrel of rum and brought him back like that.
That's what he would have wanted.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a weird, like, weirdly unceremonious after all. But yeah, anyway.
Okay, so
Val says they did. I heard that too. That's all the source. That's all the confirmation I need.
I heard a rumor.
I heard a rumor you got stuffed into a barrel of.
Okay, so there was a big painting with an angel going like, "Oh, go on, you little boat, aren't you doing a good job there?" So I can do that. There was other boat-related stuff around, though. besides the ladder, there was also a massive painting of a ship. This ship was getting totally battered by the weather, but it was also getting battered by godlight shining out of some angel that was hanging around in the sky. It was beaming the ship with good, can't say vibes, with good
Energy.
good energy and encouragement in beam form. As if to say, go on then, you little ship. Aren't you doing well with all this weather? Who's a good little ship? You fucking hell, I can't type. You are, aren't you? Ah.
I'm just gonna. How many A's have you put in that?
I went for
lots of
W's. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I've got to say, like, it's a real relief that Ishmael could make out this painting clearly, because otherwise he'd have had to walk back and forth and then ask everybody in the chat, as we saw in previous chapters.
Yeah, this one's clear enough that I don't think I need to try and recreate it either. Okay.
Oh, I've got some more context from Val. That's how history works. People hear stuff, so it's true, and then a link to Wikipedia.
The proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is Wikipedia.
That's good enough for me.
And then there's a link. I'm not clicking that, but I'm assuming it shows that he was stuffed. Oh, it's a JPEG. Hang on, just in case. Let's go into this mode. I'm going to click the link. Ah. He's just hanging out with his dudes.
Oh, were you hoping it was him in a rum barrel?
Yeah, that's what I was really hoping for. Stuffed in a rum barrel.
You got bait. That's the classic clickbait where it's like, you won't believe Nelson being stuffed into this rum barrel. And it's just like a really close-up picture of his face and some kind of like murky liquid around it. And then when you see the actual picture, it's just him hanging out.
It was like the reverse bait though, because like normally you get you click a link and, I mean not normally, but you know, sometimes you click a link and it's something absolutely grotesque, and I was expecting the grotesque thing here and I've just got very dramatic drawing.
What, it'd just be a clickbait saying, want to see a totally normal picture of Nelson?
Yeah.
And
some Junji Ito looking body horror. A guy with half his head blown off stuffed into a barrel. That would be gross.
Pretty rad picture.
Yeah. Okay, so we covered that, and we're nearly to the end here. I think
how engrossed they are, Sam. This is like your Twitch chat.
You think? Yeah. Is that what this is like?
Yeah.
That's me just having a horrible time there.
Yeah.
That's you holding my hand trying to encourage me.
Yeah. I'm also trying to read whilst listening.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Maybe we found a new banner.
Stream goals.
And everybody's looking on just really concerned.
Yeah, this works. This works. Okay, we're nearly there, and then we're going to have to stop at the end of this chapter because we've both got stuff to do.
It's true.
Okay. This one's you.
Nor was the pulpit itself without a trace of the same sea taste that had achieved the ladder in the picture. Its panelled front was in the likeness of a ship's bluff bows, and the Holy Bible rested on a projecting piece of scrollwork fashioned after a ship's fiddle-headed beak. I'll do the last bit. What could be more full of meaning? For the pulpit is ever this earth's foremost part. All the rest comes in its rear. Pulpit leads the world. From thence it is the storm of God's quick wrath is first descried, and the bow must bear the earliest brunt. From thence it is the god of breezes fair or foul. Breezes fair or foul is first invoked for favourable winds. Yes, the world's a ship on its passage out, and not a voyage complete, and the pulpit is its prow.
The fuck is he talking about?
He's really gone off on one.
I don't understand any of this.
But I am really appreciating again, with the sports car bed thing, the fact that it got this, you put the Bible, it's kind of on like the bowsprit bit sticking out from the front of the ship.
Oh my god. The pulpit itself was pretty nautical themed as well. Now that I think of it. It wasn't just the ladder and the painting. The whole thing was done up to look like a ship. I don't know any of these parts of ships he's talking about, Al, so I'm going to have to take some artistic liberties.
I think we're talking about front bits of the ship.
Yeah.
Is the key. So we've got the bows.
The front bit of a ship specifically. So it looked as though our guy was up there, stood at the front of the ship, which is the best part to be stood at, as previously outlined. With his Bible and all his other religious gear nearby, and also done up in a boat-like sort of way. I'm gonna come in with the novelty bed combo, I think. Actually, no. Wait. We already said because the church is his boat. Yeah. Okay. Going back to that thing I said about the chapel being his boat. It makes you think. Oh no, that should have been the semicolon. Yeah, we're doing semicolons now.
Nice.
Makes you think. Pretty symbolic, eh? For the pulpit is ever this earth's most foremost part, and all the rest comes in its rear. The pulpit leads the world. From thence it is the sound comes quick. That's first. Bow must bear the earliest brunt. From there, okay, right.
Okay, you got it.
I think so. Let me know if I get this wrong. So he's up there on the pulpit, right? And the pulpit looks like the front of the ship. Yeah? So he's like a religious leader, and leaders lead from the front if they're any good. So what's really happening here is he's going around on the front of the ship, brackets church, and showing us all how it's meant to be done. And on his way, he's dragging us all up in his wake and fetching us all along in a religious kind of direction. Sort of like what they say normal vicars do when they talk about their flock. Except he's not a shepherd because this is a sailor town. So everything's nautical themed. So he's looking after us as like a captain.
Nice.
As a captain, and we're all his sailors. I mean, I am reading quite a bit into this. It could be quite bad, actually, if he's up there on the prow of his ship and we're just in our little fishing boats about to get run over. That'd be really bad, actually. They should have thought more about the optics here, or at least given us some point of reference to understand what their goal was, because frankly I was getting mixed messages.
Is that chapter ending?
Yes, I think so.
Excellent.
Okay. Yeah, we'll alternate paragraphs, I reckon, and then we'll close this out.
Cool. That sounds good to me. I wanted to do a quick aside. I know we did an aside last week about Moby Dick reviews. I thought this week I would do a little look on eBay to see what Moby Dick gifts and toys you can get. Actually, very disappointing. But you can get a jigsaw, which shows a really annoyed-looking whale. You can get a lot of figurines of a guy from Resident Evil, who I guess was called Moby Dick.
Weird.
Yeah, and a little race car. But anyway, those are just some of the delights I'd encourage everyone to explore on their own. I thought that would be a lot more interesting, but it turned out it's just really boring stuff is called Moby Dick.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. This is more what I was looking for. Moby Dick, the big softy whale plush soft toy. That's the kind of thing. I think that would be sellable.
Okay. We'll put it to our lottery funding consultant.
Yeah. If anyone in chat, if you've got any merchandise you think are based around the Moby Dick streams, just
please start selling it and give us a fraction.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get this recap on the road. Recap chapter reading. You take the first one, I'll take the second.
Let's have a look. Chapter 8, The Pulpit, Church Sermon Platform. Shortly after, a guy walked in, a guy with a kind of venerable robustness, if you know what I mean. The doors slammed shut behind him, and everyone turned to look.
He was the chaplain, but not the normal kind of chaplain you might be used to. This guy was an ex-sailor chaplain. He didn't bring an umbrella, and he hadn't come in a coach or anything because all of his clothes were fucking soaked. And he was wearing loads of cloth, as chaplains do, which is why they're called men of the cloth, fun fact. But there was so much water in all of his layers that he was dragging himself around like some kind of haunted sentient sponge on a hook in a coat. Everyone loved this guy. Father Mapple. He was famous for being a cool old sailor chaplain. But even though he was old, he was kind of young in a weird old way. Here's my thinking on this.
They say that all your cells replace themselves every 7 years or so. But this guy was so old that his cells were all refreshed so much and so many times that he was basically a new man, and had been a new man many times before. And he had twinkly eyes peering out from that massive, saggy, overhanging, wrinkled sheet of a forehead. He had a new lease of life, if you will.
He shook himself out of the most damp clothes and chucked them in a corner. You might be thinking, Ishmael, you just got to this town. How do you know about Father Mapple and him being a sailor? And I'd say, watch your tone. And then I'd explain the following.
When I was describing this chapel a chapter ago, I neglected to mention that this was not just a chapel for sailors. It was a chapel made by sailors, which you could tell by the fact that it was basically a boat inside, with ropes and ladders and all the other nautical modes of egress instead of your more common and expected options like stairs. Anyway, even if you don't know anything about sailing, which I do, so it's neither here nor there, there will be something in your bones that would look at the way Father Mapple ascended the pulpit that would just tell you, just scream at you, that man's a sailor, or he was anyway. When the father walked up to that old ship-like ladder to get up to his podium, the years fled his body like moth from an old coat, and he deftly hauled himself aloft with a reverence and a skill that only a sailor could possess. A sailor climbing to the top of his boat, which in this case was the church, but not the roof, because that would be awful in this weather.
One thing I did not see coming, however, was that after climbing the ladder, Father Mapple picked it up after him and folded the whole thing behind him in the pulpit himself. There wasn't going to be anyone else coming up after him. It was a defensible position. Very wise.
Maybe it wasn't that he was paranoid about some bastard coming in and grabbing his ankles mid-sermon, though. Maybe it was symbolic. Maybe him climbing up all high and then pulling up the ladder behind him to show that he was detached from all this surface-level human bullshit. Above it all, untouchable. He doesn't need all our shit. And we're into. He's got God and all the perks that God might offer. He's got a fully catered little God pod up there, and he doesn't need to worry about us dirty little pricks on the ground, rolling around and sinning, doing all the other bad stuff. It's all right for some.
There was other boat-related stuff around, though. Besides the ladder, there was also a massive painting of a ship, and the ship was getting totally battered by the weather, but it was also getting battered by godlight shining out of some angel that was hanging around in the sky. It was beaming the ship with good energy and encouragement in beam form. As if to say, go on then, you little ship. You're doing well with all this weather. Who's a good little ship? You are, aren't you? Oh. The pulpit itself was pretty nautical themed as well, now that I think of it. It wasn't just the ladder and the painting, the whole thing was done up to look like a ship, the front bit of a ship specifically, so it looked as though our guy who was stood up there at the front of the ship, which is the best part to be stood at as previously outlined, with his Bible and all his other religious gear nearby, and also done up in a... This sentence doesn't make sense. I think I lost my train of thought right in this one. Wait, let me fix this. It wasn't just the whole thing was just like a ship. The front bit of a ship specifically. I mean, just putting in full stops doesn't solve this, I don't think. So it looked as though a guy was up there, stood at the front of the ship, which is the best I've stood to, with his Bible and all his other religious gear nearby.
I think you can just cut everything up nearby, and it makes sense. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you can have which as well, yeah. Which was
also done up in a boat-like sort of way. Okay, on to you.
Okay. Going back to that thing I said about the chapel being his boat, it makes you think. Pretty symbolic, eh? So he's up there on the pulpit, right? And the pulpit looks like the front of a ship, yeah? So he's like a religious leader, and leaders lead from the front if they're any good. So what's really happening here is he's going around on the front of the ship, parentheses, church, and showing us all how it's meant to be done. And on his way, he's dragging us all up in his wake and fetching us all along in a religious kind of direction. sort of like what they say normal vicars. They say normal vicars when
What
they
they
talk about
say,
their
what they say about normal. Yeah.
yeah, when they talk about their flock, except he's not a shepherd. This is sailor town, so everything's nautical theme. So he's looking after us as a captain, and we're all sailors.
I mean, I am reading quite a bit into this, and it could be quite bad actually if he's up there on the prow of a ship and we're just in our little fishing boats about to get run over. That'd be really bad actually. They should have thought more about the optics here, or at least given us some point of reference to understand what their goal was, because frankly, I was getting mixed messages.
Nice.
End of chapter.
That's a couple of my favorite adapted paragraphs in there, so I'm glad we stuck with it.
Cool. Right. So, I think that was a success.
Hot news!
Ooh.
Hot news from Emma. I'd like a tote bag. What would be on this tote bag? Do you think, Sam? To sum up,
What do you want on your tote bag?
Would it be a picture of like Nelson being shot, but just with your face on Nelson?
I think we could do that. We're just talking tote bag designs. He wants the whale. We can do that. We'll make some tote bags.
Well, yeah, that's fair enough.
Everyone loves a tote bag. It's better than just getting a carry bag from the shop. More environmentally friendly.
Yeah, it's less likely to end up inside a whale, I guess. So
true. What? Nelson being shot isn't a Moby Dick moment, Emma. But we could.
It is in our show. There's also some.
It would be like half of an episode. It'd be like a recap session.
There's also some dissent in the chat where Val is saying, "Is boat like a word, Sam?" I
yes.
mean, you've got a chance to address that now. Is that a hard yes?
I'm going to address that right now.
Mm. I thought you were just going to turn the stream off.
Yeah, which is a sailor way of saying boat like. Okay, then open a boat like, which is a sailor way of saying boat like sort of way. Case closed. Can't argue with Ishmael because he's never wrong. Nice. And with that, yeah, I think we should probably close it off. We'll probably do the next one Friday evening, I think.
Sounds good.
Which should be a better time zone for all those Americans out there who are definitely going to be impressed with our reverence towards this American classic.
And if you're in the UK, what else are you doing on a Friday night?
There's nothing to do. You can go into a pub garden and just listen to people who've been there since noon just going, "It's Friday, yeah!" Which is what we did the other day. Speaking of things we did the other day, Andy, I've got a film I would recommend to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday, we watched a film called Vampire's Kiss, starring Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage?
Nick Cage in, have you seen The Joker? I don't think you have you?
No.
Okay, so Joker was a rip-off of American Psycho. This is a rip-off of American Psycho, and American Psycho is a rip-off of Vampire's Kiss, starring Nick Cage, where basically Nick Cage goes mad and thinks that he's turning into a vampire, and just has a totally normal one. Yeah, I think it's worth a watch. It's not a good film, but it's very interesting.
You always have to clarify when it is Nick Cage. Do you mean his character thinks he's turning into a vampire, or do you mean Nick Cage in real life?
Well, he's method, so he became a vampire in real life just to see what it was like. Amazing. He did eat a live cockroach in real life for filming it, which I thought was weird. Didn't add anything to the film. Could have just done without. I think they tricked him.
Was it not even in the script? He just did it.
Oh no! It didn't even segue into anything else that was happening. It was just a close up of a cockroach on his hob, and then he just goes nom 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 nom. That was it. That was previously we'd been in his office, and it's a shot of his house, and then we're back outside again.
Imagine how many other classic movie scenes would be improved by that, though. If you have Orson Welles being like, "Spud," and then he just grabs a cockroach and starts chewing on it.
That's how you get all the like critical acclaim. It's what they did in Old Boy when he goes and eats the octopus.
Oh yeah.
There was no need for that. I love Old
No.
Boy as a film, but that wasn't necessary.
No, it really wasn't.
It was just a bit gross. Wait. I don't see the correlation of the Joker to Patrick Bateman. Spoilers for all of the above.
Oh no.
They're about a dickhead who just goes off on one and imagines a bunch of stupid shit and become bad guys along the way, just out of self-delusion. That's about it. The whole fragile ego businessman or comedy thing, whatever, just people having a bad time with societal pressures and channeling it in a very bad way. And I don't like any of them.
But he's not a yuppie. Are we not saying it's just to be
Nick
clear?
Cage is a bit of a yuppie in this.
Ah.
Joker isn't a yuppie.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
No. Patrick Bateman, yuppie.
Yes.
Yeah, they're similar. Okay, they're not the exact same, but they're definitely, yeah, they are a genre.
So they both have a bit of a dance on some steps.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. I'm going to see if I can find this clip. Too late, vampires.
And then it says, I thought it was a rip-off of Taxi Driver. Again, I haven't seen it, but I was getting some Taxi Driver. Isn't there like, is it the King of Comedy or something as well? That it was
that was, yeah.
to?
Also that.
Too late, Alva.
But I don't know if you can see, you probably can't. You won't be able to hear it either, but folks back home can.
I'll
And
have a look on your stream.
Too late.
It's not too late. It's
Too
not too
late.
late.
Too late. Too late. Too late. It's too late, Alva. It's all too late, Alva. Come here. Come here, Alva.
yeah, that was the closest you get to a dance, I think, there.
I'll see it when I watch the VOD later.
Yeah, in about a minute.
Yeah.
It's a weird fucking film, but I very much enjoyed it. Anyway, we should wrap this up, and we'll see you all probably on Friday.
See you then.
All right. Bye-bye. Let me just get my ocean sounds on. Wait, give me a sec. There they are. Ain't that relaxing? Enjoying the ocean there. We'll see you later on Friday. Well, we missed out on ASMR Corner, didn't we? Oh well.
We did, yeah, we skipped it.
Hang on. Here's a bit of ASMR for you. I've got a crunchy wrapper.
Oh.
Yeah, camera on. Now we can get that ASMR tag. Do people like that? I genuinely have no idea. Anyway, see ya!
Bye.